Tao Meeting Archives, August 30th, 2015. It's a Hard Life by Bill Bunting.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting beginning ritual, everyone. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
And good morning or afternoon or evening, whatever is appropriate for the time zone you happen to be in at the moment. And welcome to another installment of the Sunday Online Tao Study Group. It's a beautiful, sunny, late summer day here in Indianapolis. It's a great day to be alive. It's a great day to be sharing in this process. You know, life just couldn't be better. And right on the heels of that statement, today we're going to talk about It's a Hard Life. You know, I find as I write these talks from week to week that the most difficult part of writing the talk is not the content. It's always the opening. It's the first couple of sentences that I try to find a way to make engaging and humorous and attention-getting. And sometimes it takes me longer to come up with that than it does for me to come up with the rest of the talk. This one, however, was fairly simple. All of us that are stuck in this existence from time to time have asked ourselves, how come life is so tough? How come things are so hard? And for some folks, I think that's a continual state of existence. We all know somebody whose life is continually in upheaval, turmoil, and drama. My oldest daughter is in that condition right now, where they're always emotionally strained, they're always stressed, they're rarely to never happy with things. And for some reason or another, everything that happens to them always seems to be somebody else's fault. Now, she's not the only person that I know in that situation. I run into them from time to time all over, as I'm sure most of you do as well. But the question and the observations are still salient and useful, because in running into these folks, I found that it's extremely difficult sometimes to reach them. Sometimes it's difficult to understand the basis for so much dejectedness, strife, and turmoil, and so much emotional upheaval. That is, you know, sometimes we can observe somebody else's life from the outside and see the circumstances that lead to some of the problems and situations that these folks wind up in. Sometimes there's no apparent visible cause at all, and yet this person's life is just continually upside down. But there are some common traits that I've noticed both in the years and in myself and over the years in others that lead to the construction of a life in turmoil. One of them is the first item on this list, that emotional instability and nature that swings from one state of emotional extremes to another, sometimes cycling fairly rapidly from one catastrophe to the next. It's a state where one is either completely ecstatic and elated or near suicidally depressed, and there's very, very, very nearly no middle of the road at all. There always seems to be a high component of life stress, real or imagined. anxiety about the present, past, and future. There's continual worry about employment or income or life management or whether or not the boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other is going to leave or not. All kinds of anxieties upon anxieties and worries upon worries that never seem to depart these individuals. And in the midst of that stress and upheaval, there is a continual lack of contentment and happiness. There's a perception that somehow in every life situation they've been short-cheated in some way, that they've been cheated out of the happiness that the universe owes them, and therefore they're going to be miserable whether we like it or not. The other thing that always grabs me is that when I talk to folks that are in this situation, inevitably what I hear is how the situation is somebody else's fault. How there's always someone else to blame for the difficulties that are besetting this life, and how if only this person or that person would change what they're doing, saying, thinking, or being, that everything would be okay. That sort of an approach to living is very nearly impossible to get over. And it causes me to ask the question every time I encounter it of what it is that causes so much turmoil in a person's life. I speak very frequently in this forum about our attachments and our desires, and about moderating our attachments and our desires, because our attachments and our desires always bring suffering. Always. The things that we are attached to will bring us suffering either because we're going to leave them or they're going to leave us in one way or another. The example I use most commonly is the attachment that I have to my wife. I'm very attached to my wife. Love her a lot. I would prefer that she not wander out of my life. But one of these days, one of the two of us is going to die. I'm guessing it's going to be me first. I certainly hope it's not her. But in either case, whether it's me or her, one of us is going to suffer at that point. Now, I've told my family that when I pass, I expect them to give me my 15 minutes worth of grief and then to get on about the job of living life. And I hope they pay attention. But whether they do or not, for at least that 15 minutes, they're going to suffer. There are people that are in my life as friends and acquaintances that if they wandered out of my life would cause me suffering. I care a great deal about them. I like them a whole bunch. I love having them around. And so, you know, if they went away for some reason or another, particularly if there was some kind of causality, I'd suffer a lot. There aren't so many things that I desire anymore. I'm in kind of the latter years of middle age, and quite frankly, I have everything I've ever wanted out of life. If I had to die tomorrow, I'd go a happy guy. But for most of us, there are the unrequited desires in our lives that bring us suffering as well. The things we think we deserve or that we think that we want, that we can't acquire or spend an inordinate amount of effort attempting to acquire, and all of that time either suffering as a result of the acquisition or suffering as a result of the pursuit. Case in point is the story Derek tells of the individuals who've won the lottery and become fabulously wealthy overnight, where a scenario has been established where one would think that these people would be ecstatically happy for the remainder of their lives. They've been set up with enough money to have and do anything that they want. And yet, that fabulous wealth becomes a curse as every unknown relative they never knew they had comes out of the woodwork to try and take that money away from them. Or as they squander and waste those resources in hedonistic pursuits that in and of themselves wind up in suffering, and then leave them broke and with tons of problems that they have to deal with because they didn't manage the resources they had skillfully. So, okay, I can see that pretty clearly. I can see where that would be a problem that one would need to master and find a way out of in order to not suffer, to not be miserable, to not be dejected all the time. There is a pervading absence of contentment. It's a tremendous tragedy of human existence that very often we do not know how much is enough. We don't know when to stop. We're not happy with the conditions of our lives, or with our position in life, or with what we've managed to acquire in our lives. And so we set about in a discontented fashion to attempt to change that. There are some things in life that simply have to be accepted and dealt with as facts of living. And I guess learning to accept and deal with those things as facts of living may be one additional component of some of that upheaval and turmoil. For instance, I have over the years come to accept the fact that I am probably never going to be fabulously wealthy. That probably is not going to happen in my lifetime to me. If it does, I probably won't complain, but I'm not going to shoot myself if it doesn't. I've been remarkably blessed to be able to do for a living what I love to do. I love programming computers. I love working with databases. I love analyzing problems. I really enjoy helping people out in business situations. I'm not delusional enough to believe that anything that I do today is going to be important 50 years from now. Not in the secular workaday world anyway. But I enjoy what I do for a living. I enjoy my family. We have a good life. We have a nice home. We have all the stuff we could ever possibly have wanted, I hope. And so, in short, I'm content with the way things are. But if the whole thing fell apart tomorrow, I would still be content with my life, because the things that really mattered aren't the things that can be bought and sold or given or destroyed. I've not always had the personal wealth that I have now. My pile of personal wealth is not impressive by anyone's standards, but there have been times in my life when I was significantly worse off financially. And I can tell you for a fact and from experience that it is not the acquisition of personal wealth that brings with it happiness. I have never purchased a brand new car. I think purchasing something that loses a third of its value the second you drive it off the dealership lot is patently ridiculous. And so I've never done it. Probably never will. Even if I could pay cash outright for it, I probably wouldn't. I tend to be meticulous and rigorous in the selection of a decent used vehicle, but I'm not hung up on the car itself, and I'm certainly not hung up on any kind of a male midlife crisis status symbol. You can't put me in a Corvette with 3 jars of Vaseline and a shoehorn anyway. I'm about a foot too tall and about 2 feet too long. I think along with that sense of commitment or contentment, bit of a sense of humor probably goes a long way to dispelling some of that turmoil. I see a lack of compassion as being causal in a life in turmoil and upheaval. People in that condition don't seem to be able to reach out to other folks in a spirit of giving and sharing and mutual assistance. And that absence of compassion, that inability to give of oneself, I think restricts one's ability to receive in any way whatsoever, to the point where if one encounters one of these folks from the standpoint of compassion and servitude to others, they still can't accept the good wishes, feelings, and assistance of another person. I think the doorway to the heart and the mind is too tightly shuttered, closed, to allow even a tiny bit of compassion to escape. Those folks who are continually in turmoil and upheaval tend to personalize everything that happens to them. If it rains too much and they get wet, God hates them. If it's sunny and it gets too hot, God hates them. It is not the job of the universe to take care of our personal comforts, nor is it the whim of the universe to strike us with afflictions and excessive rain and heat. But for some reason, it's easier to curse the darkness than it is to light the match. Perhaps part of that stems from an aversion to self-introspection that's absolutely essential for cultivating the Tao teachings. Every one of us who's dedicated to these pursuits on a pretty regular basis goes through a process of self-analysis and introspection to determine what it is we need to continue to work on and improve. And in my case, that list is long and impressive. I won't run out of things to work on and improve for countless generations yet. But that's okay. It gives me something to do. If we're in the mindset where we're blaming everybody else for the problems in our lives, that process of introspection and self-refinement does not occur. And I see that as a huge detriment to contentment, happiness, and any form of giving. And as I spoke of before, that sense of misplaced responsibility is a real killer of happiness. So does that mean that the person who's going through this is essentially flawed in some way, or bad, or evil? No. It's very, very easy to make those kinds of value judgments about others based on what we can observe. But understand that we can never observe the whole picture. We just don't have all of the information, and never will have. And so to write off another individual as being intrinsically flawed beyond repair, or being evil or bad, usually is a hasty judgment without foundation. I try my very best, no matter how frustrated I may get, and I do get frustrated sometimes, to remember that these people are souls on the path just like we are. They're trying to find their way home, back to the Tao, just like we are. They're trying to find enlightenment just like we are, even if they don't know what enlightenment is. There was a time in each and every one of our lives where we didn't know what enlightenment was, or where one could go to find it, or what studies one might pursue to even begin to approach trying to become enlightened. were all teenagers once, all adolescents, and all went through those periods of self-discovery and self-brutalizing, if you will, that goes along with trying to find one's identity and to become comfortable and happy with who and what we are. How quickly we tend to forget that once upon a time, there was us. So what's a better answer? Well, in chapter 27 of the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says in part that the good person is the teacher of the bad, and the bad person is the resource of the good. That those who don't honor their teachers and love their resources, although they're intelligent, are greatly confused. That's a paragraph with which I think every person I've ever spoken to can identify with at one level or another. I absolutely know I can. I have been the person who, although intelligent, was greatly confused. Let me state it another way. Everybody brightens a room. Some folks by entering, some folks by leaving. But that doesn't mean the folks who brighten the room by leaving are in some way intrinsically evil. It simply means they haven't learned yet. I haven't found a person yet who is beyond education. But I've seen a few who'd refused to accept it. The key to relieving, to mitigating that turmoil and that upheaval is that ruthless process of introspection, followed by action. It's the process of learning to strike the match instead of cursing the darkness. It's choosing self-honesty instead of blaming others. It's choosing stability and emotional equanimity over turmoil and upheaval. It means choosing to see things more positively, choosing to walk the path and not just curse the ignorance. It means choosing to be gentle and kind with others and rigorous with ourselves. The key and operative word there is choose. What it is we practice, we become. I didn't start out my life as a cultivator of the Tao teachings. I did not start out my life as a Tai Chi master. Both of those things came about as the result of years and years and years of searching and learning and working to get from point A to point B. Lots of practice. For the folks that I teach, they're in the process of lots of practice. And over a period of years, they will become Tai Chi masters, I hope. And I hope for all of them that they master the Tao teachings as well. Nothing would make me happier. But unless one's extremely fortunate, that doesn't help. It doesn't come instantaneously while sitting underneath a Bodhi tree. It comes as a result of a lot of hard work. It comes as a result of realizing that perhaps the answers we were born with and raised with are not the best answers that are out there, and the willingness to go see what the better answers might be, and to try them, and hang on to the ones that work and ruthlessly discard the ones that do not. So, yeah, it's a hard life. But you know, it's not so bad. We all know somebody who's always continually beset by strife and difficulty and instability. And at one point in time in life, that probably was us too. But that's okay. That's something that can be learned to be dealt with. Something that we can evolve beyond and above. The process of doing that, the process of evolving from that state of turmoil to a state of peace and stability is not easy. I've never promised anybody at any time that learning to do this stuff was easy or simple. It's not. Some of it's very difficult, particularly when we have to face ourselves. But it is doable. And if we're going to cultivate the Tao teachings in the way that they were meant to be learned and used and mastered, that practice demands that process of introspection and refinement. But ultimately, we get to choose how we're going to get through this life, and we can always change the choice. At any point in time in the process, a person can say, I'm tired of being dejected and miserable and depressed. I'm going to do something different. Anybody can say that, and anybody can do it. And anybody who wants to will find help, somewhere in the authentic Tao teachings. It's one of the reasons why we do this. So thanks a whole bunch for letting me share with you, and I hope something I said was helpful for somebody. Have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks for letting me share.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting closing ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位点传世一鞠躬，结班一鞠躬。Okay, guys, we are done.
Join the Tao meeting live to participate in the questions and commentary. For more information, go to http://taoism.net/tao/connect-online.